Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we're going to talk about the importance of standardizing your systems. Now, if you watched my latest video here, I went through all of my semi-trucks and changed the trailer hitch system to adapt to the SIBTAT system, which is now predominant in the new trailers that we have in the update. So all of my trucks are now compatible. They all have this little hitch connector system. In fact, they have two of them. One is the SIBTAT and one is my own HGS system, and you could select there on the buttons which one you want to use. So in addition to that, I did revamp my whole system to now utilize the same channels as those trailers. So I learned about the importance of standardizing the systems in the last little bit. And actually, funny enough, I've been working on standardizing, which is something I did with all of my helicopters. So if you watched my video, I went through and adjusted the system that my helicopters use to give them this configuration with this spacing. And I even went ahead and changed the VTOL to have the same system. So you can actually end up landing the VTOL on any platform that any of these helicopters share. So having a nice unified system allows you to ensure compatibility throughout all your creations. Now, if you intend on making a lot of creations, as I do, this is something you'll definitely need, because otherwise you're going to end up coming to a point where your creations are no longer compatible, and if the system is designed for you to play with all of them together, as I do, you're not going to have a good time. The first system I ended up unifying was actually for my Regal built boats, and this came out of necessity because I didn't want to have trailers that would work for each individual boat. I wanted every boat to be able to work with these trailers. So in came what I believe I call the R10 system, which is this. It's just a sliding track with a single connector that all of these vessels, big and small, share. So with that, I was able to then apply that method to other creations. Just yesterday, I adapted all of my rib boats to adapt to and work with the system that the Regal builds have. So they also use what I call the R10 system. So you can see here we got the track, the single point. Previously we had two tracks, which actually was bad because then you could end up with your boat hitching on the wrong way and whatnot. So all of these were now fixed, and I have a single system for most of my smaller boats. And now I could use any of these trailers with any of these ribs. Now the ribs have a nice little side connector as well. That's intentional, not the 3Z, but the rest of them do. So you can actually pair it on to the back of vessels with that, which also helps for kind of quick deployment. So what I developed is this system that you see here. Now the nice thing about this video is that it shows you that every time the connectors are in the exact same plane, so no matter where the position is. And I called this the H4 system. Pretty much it started because it was for the helicopters, but also because it looks like an H. And I wanted a universal system that can be easily applied, let's say to helipads, where any helicopter type, as long as the helipad's big enough obviously, can fit in here. So clearly the Martel can't fit and the larger 118, but smaller helicopters could fit in this spot, and they all use the exact same size. But then I thought, why stop there? Why not also put it on the decks of the ships so helicopters could also land here? So now I've added it here in addition to the ISO-sized container. Now, switching gears for a second, the ISO-sized container is a great standardization in Stormworks that gives us containers that can easily be applied to a variety of applications. I wish there was one that was half the size, like a smaller ISO, and I think the game used to have that before. But even that, the ISO style container is a very good size and a very good application. So that's a perfect example of standardization. So anyway, with the H4 system that you see here, that was what I thought would be a perfect application for kind of anything that has a wider, call it body, like a helicopter. And for that reason, I adapted the H4 system to all of my mini subs. So now the mini subs themselves will all have that exact same style of connector in the exact same style and configuration, so you can easily end up attaching any one of these including the cont, and including this one, you just can't see it's on the bottom. Here it's already configured. The C banana is not configured, but it actually follows the R10 system. And then this guy here has it on the bottom. So all of these could now be applied to the same spot that helicopters can be placed. Which may not make sense where you put a helicopter, you put a submarine, but what you do is store it on the deck of a ship such as this. So now, where this blue square is, you can put either one of the helicopters or either one of the mini subs. So it gives you a perfect standardized system. And as you can see here, we also have the R10 system that can be applied, and any boat, whether it's a rib or a regal built, can be placed in this location. Clearly this boat is a little big for this application. You could see that even the engines here will clash with the deck, so that can't fit, but in theory that connector can be applied to that connector and the sliding track to that sliding track, again assuming the engines were not there. Perhaps this rib is a better example because here you have the propeller they're gonna clear the deck, but over here you have the front connector attaching to that, and you have the sliding connector attaching to that. So in this case, we can actually spawn the ship up, and the 9X will pair to the deck perfectly using the R10 connector that you see here. We already talked about the H4 for the helicopters, but here is the H4 style connector working with a submarine. So now we have a rib, a submarine, and a helicopter on the deck of the ship, all using these integrated systems that end up giving us the ability to apply multiple types of loads. That's why I learned the hard way for the HGS system that I developed, the hitch, gooseneck, and semi systems. So in this case, you could see we have the gooseneck, we have the hitch, and we have the semi system. Now, while it was a system that I developed myself, I didn't really consider the SIBTAT system that ended up having different channels for different connectors. For example, the brake lights were on a different channel than my system. So that actually led to some conflicts here that had to be resolved by adapting the entire HGS system into SIBTAT. So that I explained that in another video, but it wasn't too hard of a change. And now having kind of a unified connection gives you a lot more compatibility, especially with the new trailers that the game has. The one system where I didn't really follow convention was for the locomotives. Now for the locomotives, I made my own system, my own standard, but I followed it up with my own trailers and my own type of content. So I didn't really want to utilize someone else's, especially for the fact of developing a system here that is absolutely standalone with its creations. Now, of course, you can use this connector and plug in a different style of locomotive or a different type of thing to pull, but you may not get power, you're not going to get the compatibility, you may not get the brakes. That is unfortunately the downsides of not making your system compatible. But again, in my case, I like to think I kind of made a decent amount of trailers or cars, and that because of that you can utilize my locomotives pretty much standalone. Of course, I wanted to make it my own system, and like especially for pulling multiple locomotives and having multiple locomotives controlling other ones, I called my train system the RCU system, and it's quite complicated with a lot of different factors and things talking to one another, but I find that it does work well. So this is a case where I didn't really want to integrate into the existing system. That said, if we end up, for example, getting rolling stock just like we have the trailers, so if we had a siding with a bunch of train cars that now communicated with the train in a different manner, I would absolutely have to make a conversion, and that would be unfortunately the downside. But as of now, there's not an official system that follows any one standard in the game. There are some that are more prevalent and that I was recommended, but for that reason, I mean, not for that reason, but for a reason of my own, I decided to make kind of my own standardized system. So that is the importance of standardizing your systems, especially if you intend on having mini creations as I ended up having. I didn't think about this early enough. So if you are planning on making a bunch of stuff, I would recommend making it integratable within each other. So I definitely don't have one system. I have a train system, I have a truck trailer system, I have kind of a helicopter submarine system, and a smaller boat system. But within them, they're all able to kind of fit here on the deck of this ship. So at least that's one thing. And then as for the rest of them, like the train cars and the trucks, well, the trucks are now integrated with the SIBTAT system. The trains are kind of standalone, and that is pretty much what we have. So between this, it gives us a wide variety of applications. Of course, every rule has to end up being broken eventually, but this gives us a good amount to start with. So I'm going to kind of expand on that and see where it takes us. Anyway, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more content. Stay tuned for more creations. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and see you next time.